A new ban list for Master Duel is here, and we're going to have a $1,000 tournament qualifier with the new ban list on Sunday, twitch.tv/Decade. Now, let's check out the tier list for context on what we're about to see with the ban list. Tier 1, we have Snake Eye, Fiendsmith, Crystron, and Fiendsmith Control. Right now, I'd say that the tier list is in a transitory period as Crystron has recently released a new pack and also recently has rose to a high tier in prevalence within the meta, which really messes up a deck like Fiendsmith Control, which relies on its Bystials being able to banish light and dark monsters, which works against Memento, Blue Eyes, Branded, and mostly against Snake Eye Fiendsmith. So Fiendsmith Control is just going to dramatically drop, which I predicted would happen as soon as a deck like Melissa were to come out, because the Bystials are not as good against that. And now Crystron is just making that happen earlier. But without Fiendsmith Control being a good deck, that means Snake Eye Fiendsmith is going to further rise as the most dominant deck unless this ban list hits this deck enough. And because of that, my predictions going into this ban list in my prediction video was that Diablo Star would go to 1, and also Zombie Vampire would also go to banned because of the Millennium Engine being used and abused by Snake Eye Fiendsmith, and also newly being used by Crystron, which would be a mini hit for Crystron itself. Now, with that out of the way, let's see. Well, also Tier 2, Branded, Blue Eyes, Memento, and Tier 3, Sprite and Mermaid Atlantia. But I mostly want to talk about what was going to Tier 1. And Snake Eye being the main deck that we all know should get hit, hopefully. Let's see. All right, ban list time. Boom. July 4th will be the implementation of this ban list. And there will also be a small unban for June 24th with the new pack. This is not a new main selection pack. It's just like a mini selection pack, and maybe I'll make a new video about that. Let's scroll on down. Cards to be unlimited. Time seal from 0 to 3. What is going on here? I got a little bit of a spoiler because I was checking out the new pack to see that Time Seal, and I'll just show it right now. Boom, Glow Up Bulb also are being unhit within the new pack. Now, let's see what's going on with Time Seal. What's the big deal about this? Skip the draw phase of your opponent's next turn. And as we can see, it's not banned in the TCG nor OCG, and we have no buttons here, which also means it's not in any tournament topping decks. Now, let's further look at that on Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta, so we don't get spoiled on any other ban list changes possibly. No usage data because the card is pretty much trash. Now, I'm thinking that this card, if you really want to troll, could be used with maybe transaction rollback, where if you were to mill it in the first turn, you could copy the effect of Time Seal to right away on your first turn, activate this to skip their draw. And Time Seal is similar to a card I was using back in the day, which was called Drop Off. This was maybe 20 freaking years ago. Instead of your opponent drawing, they mill the top card of their deck, and they do skip their draw, but there's too many graveyard relevant effects, so a card like Time Seal would be better, but it's still very bad. Also, another use for Time Seal, if you really want to get using, is maybe a card like Lady Labyrinth. You could set it from the deck, and then with the Coup Clock, or maybe even Butler setting the Time Seal, you can have fun skipping the draw phase. Either way, it's going to be a troll card. It's not going to be good. And let's see what else is with the ban list here. As I was saying, I already saw Glow Up Bulb and Time Seals with the new pack. I don't know the rest of the ban list, though. So let's see, Glow Up Bulb, still banned in the TCG, but it's been unlimited in the OCG. So it would be good to see, has anything happened with Glow Up Bulb? Now, unlike the Time Seal, we do have a stat button here. So let's see, in the OCG, Lightsworn, Synchrons, Naturia, and Tearlaments are enjoying the usage of Glow Up Bulb. What's so good about this? Why was this worthy of a ban? Well, I think a lot of tuners have been banned because the Crystron Hulk, which would summon any tuner from the deck, this being one of them. If this card is in your graveyard, you could send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, then special summon this card. This is a once per duel effect. Now, this is a very similar card to Jet Synchron. Jet Synchron could reborn from the grave by discarding a card and is not a once per duel effect. Well, immediately, you don't have to discard a card from your hand, and you could maybe mill, as I was saying with Drop Off, maybe mill a graveyard-centric card off the top of your deck, which all of these decks have graveyard-related cards. Now, this is the TCG, so we don't care about that. OCG, and here are some decklist examples. Okay, there's something. The Glow Up Bulb being an Earth tuner works with Natura Beast. One non-Earth monster tuner, and it's a non-tuner Earth. You have to have 2 Earth monsters, a tuner and a non-tuner, and then you now get to have infinite spell negate with your Natura Beast, and I guess maybe a deck like this, so with Adamancipator possibly, with Naturia, maybe will be reemerging with a turn 1, it's kind of like a floodgate, right? You'd have to say that if it's negating your spells infinitely, kind of like an Imperial Order, but it's 2200, a little bit more easy to knock off the field, so not as toxic, but still I would say is toxic. So, okay, Global, will this make a big difference on the meta? I don't really see it being used in any of these top tier decks, right? Maybe I'm missing something, you tell me. Now, let's see what else is going on with the ban list. Let's get to the real meat, the real ban list. And it is the July 4th ban list, cards to be unlimited. Astrograph. What? This card is limited to 1 in TCG and OCG. What the? If a card you control is destroyed in any way whatsoever, you then get to special summon this card, and then you get to add a monster with the same name from your deck to your hand of a card that was already destroyed this turn. So, and what's crazy about this is not a hard once per turn. You can continually activate this effect. Now, a good question would be, what if you have a bunch of astrographs in your hand? Well, if you have not learned from Fire King already, is that if multiple effects have the effect on trigger to summon from the hand, they cannot be activated in the same chain from that player. Yes, it's like a kind of almost an unwritten rule, you'd say. So multiple astrographs, even though more than one can be activated in the same turn, it's not going to be triggering more than once in the same chain. You don't just summon 3 bodies in the field with the sorcerer, but if you separately keep on destroying cards, then all 3 different astrographs will just continually summon onto the field, and that would still be very good. Now, what the heck is Pendulum deck going to be enjoying with this? Now, actually, I don't want to be highlighting the decks because I may get spoiled here. Pendulum Magician, Odd Eyes, Supreme King Melodious, Metal Foes, Sulfachord. And I don't want to highlight this deck, I may get spoiled, but you can see a Draco Slayer deck from the top 100 Duelist Cup. Very nice. You have Electromite still banned in the TCG, so if you want Pendulums to be at their best, then come on over to Macedol where it's at. All right, let's see what else we have with the ban list. Diameter. Ooh, okay. From 1 to 3. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get spoiled by looking up MathMech Circular, but maybe if I go into Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta, that will be a good idea, right? So, because I don't want to highlight anything else besides seeing that Circular is limited to 1 in the TCG and limited to 1 in the OCG. And unless it's newly on the ban list, I'm not going to highlight to see. We'll keep on looking. It shouldn't, because the deck has not been relevant. Well, now MathMech is in its best position within Macedol. Again, Pendulum, MathMech in Macedol. Also Sprite, because Sprite's also got a bunch of hits in the TCG and OCG where it doesn't in Macedol only. So I think that's quite interesting, where we have these deck type communities where they essentially play Macedol just for their own deck type, and now they have a home in Macedol if you want to get MathMech. And now MathMech is, in a way, if you're hating Mermail, well, this deck just does rip a random card from your hand through the Super Factorial, which is very annoying, and then also has a negate on top of it. So I don't know. This is definitely going to be something. This makes the deck a lot less susceptible to a Bestial. As I was just saying, Chris Strawn was making Bestials less prevalent within the top tier because of Fiendsmith control, which maybe they're going to adjust their deck and take out the Bestials and put in the, let's say, Cash Tier and Millennium cards instead to make up for it. But I could see MathMech definitely coming back. I would not want to be joining an event or playing a top tier ladder if I'm fearing my Diameter getting banished and then I'm one and done. So very good job to MathMech players. Let's see what else. All right. We have cards to be limited. Okay, we're skipping semi-limits. Interesting. Okay. Whoa. Golem. What? No way. What the heck? This was my prediction for Zombie Vampire. Maybe Zombie Vampire is still getting banned, but wow, Golem to 1. I'm sorry if you are an Exodia player. What the? Now, I don't want to spoil myself looking at other cards, so we could just see the usage ratios here. It was, some people were already playing it at 1. At 1, it was the minimal, and Exodia was mostly playing it at 2 to 3, and the most popular way to play it was at 2. But as you can see, the ratios are pretty close here, with Snake Eye Fiendsmith and Christian playing it at 2 to 3, with the least likely being at 1. Now, if you're not sure why this card is so good without me being able to show you, because again, I don't want to spoil myself, this would allow you to get 2 level 8 monsters on the field, plus the golem itself being level 6. That would be 7750 damage on the field without committing to a normal summon, and you could push a monster on the field into the back row, and you could summon a Photon Lord monster negate, or you make a zombie vampire, which could mill 4 cards off the top of your deck, then maybe summon a core engine piece of your deck off of that 4-card mill. And, you know, this would also, if you did use up your normal summon, you can make a Little Knight with the extra golem, which will now be less likely because this card being limited to 1, so you're not going to be opening up the Millennium play as much. Now, I don't know if they're going to do something to Senjin, but immediately I'm thinking if you play more Field Spell, then that can make up for this card being limited to 1, unless they also hit the Field Spell. Now, is opening up the Field Spell as good as opening up a Senjin or the Golem? Definitely not. You will actually, you'll still have Senjin on the field plus a Doom Dragon, but you're actually going to have to use the Golem that you grab off the Field Spell. Well, the Field Spell will send the Senjin, then you'll search the Golem. You're going to have to send the Golem to the grave for the Doom Dragon. So you could still make a Zombie Vampire if you just increase the amount of Field Spells you play, just 1 less Golem on the field instead, which is kind of actually usually just an extra body on the field. And you may be thinking, oh, what about Moon of the Closed Heaven? Well, Zombie Vampire is definitely not going to whiff on summoning something off the top of the deck from either player. It may not be exactly what you want, but even if it's something you don't want, you could turn that body plus the Zombie Vampire into Moon of the Closed Heaven and then pop off from there. So, you know, I don't mean to go on a full tangent here off of just the Golem being limited to 1, because there could be other changes, but that's just what's running through my mind right now. This is, I would say, you know, it's decently impactful, but there's ways to already mitigate it if they don't ban the Zombie Vampire straight out. Let's see. All right, 3, 2, 1. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's it. We're going straight to Forbidden. No other limits. Wow. What the? They're not. What are they going to do to Snake Eye? Because Diablo Star was supposed to go to 1. Are you kidding me? There's no way we're going another ban list without Snake Eye getting freaking hit. Diablo Star to 1 is already at 1 in the OCG. I mean, what? Okay, so Forbidden, I only say Zombie Vampires getting hit. Is that also with Golem going to get banned? All right, let's see. Let's see. Cards be Forbidden. Snake Eye Oak? Oak to 0. What? This is at 3 in the TCG and OCG. Japan has never made a change like this. This has not been like maybe banned and unhit. Japan didn't even ban the original Sinful, which was banned in the TCG. Oak being banned. Wow. What does this mean for the deck? I really want to just see if anything else is forbidden, because I do want to talk deep into this and open up deck lists if there's anything else. Maybe Zombie Vampire is also banned with Oak. Wow. This instead of Diablo Star. Now, wait, I mean, Diablo Star can't be banned. Diablo Star has an upcoming alt art. So, you know, in a way, you could almost say predicting Diablo Star being hit is maybe a bad prediction because of the upcoming alt art. So if we open up the alt art, boom, there you go. But despite that, the card is still limited to 1 in Japan, even with an alt art coming. Maybe it would get unlimited for that. I don't know, but wow. Okay, let's see. Anything else forbidden? Okay, full changes. So we need to fully discuss, and hold on, like no Zombie Vampire, no Diablo Star limited to 1. We got Oak hit instead. Where do I even begin? Well, okay, I already talked a lot about the Millennium changes, but let's talk about Oak. This is crazy. Now, let's see real quick. There's this cool trick I could show you where we could see recent decks on the top decks page. We type in Oak. If you highlight the info button here, it tells you some tricks. So we could do a star and type in 3. And this shows us all decks using 3 Oak. So from 3 to banned, we had a top 10 Duelist Cup player that was playing 3 freaking Oak. You will, mate. And then we could do 2. That's a lot of decks playing 2. Oh my Jesus. But then mostly the card was being played at 1, as you could see, you know, about 4 pages of it being played at 1. And also we could pretty much see the ratios here. A small 4% were playing it at 3. Oh boy, is the deck still good? You got to be wondering that, right? If you're not too familiar with the deck, and or maybe if you have some familiarity with the deck, what does this mean for the deck? Where everyone's playing Oak, of course. So normally, what you'd be doing with this deck is you Ash add Poplar. Poplar then would set up with the Divine Temple, and Ash would summon from the deck an Oak, and then Oak would reborn a monster from the graveyard or banish. So if any of your cards were to get banished, Oak was a good way to get it back onto the field or to your hand. And I think, ooh, boy, what do you do if you open up Poplar now? If you have Poplar in your hand, Ash can't add Poplar, and Poplar normal summon would not be setting up Divine Temple. You'd be setting up Original Sinful. And Original Sinful would summon an Oak from the deck, and then you'd pop off from there. But Poplar normal summon, Original Sinful summon an Ash, that's not going to work because you're going to have to make like a Link Karibo, send Poplar, summon Ash. Ash activates to search for nothing because you have nothing to search. And then you have a Link Karibo and an Ash on the field. That's not Snake Eye combo. You literally turn them into Moon. What? You can't. How are you going to get Flame Burst in the deck and have another body to link it with? That's it. Flame Burst will be on the field with no other body because the Oak is what you would summon. So, this card is limited to 1, so this is like an unlikely scenario, but sometimes could happen. Now, if Poplar's already in your hand, and let's say you Diablo Star or Millennium into, let's say, your Ash play, or just have your Poplar, you should still be okay. In fact, if you normal summon Ash, you actually still have full combo with this because the Oak is pretty much usually summoning an extra body onto the field. And what exactly is full combo? You're going to have a Promethean Princess Engrave. You'll have at least 2 negates on Apollo. You'll have a Desiree negate. You'll have a Flame Burst on the field. You'll have a Masquerade in the background to summon. You're going to have all of that even without the Oak. But now, hands down, you have to Ash the Ash. And before, if you would Ash the Ash and they follow up with Diablo Star or an Original Sinful, what happens? They then summon Oak. Then what does Oak do? It summons Flame Burst. So if you completely save the Ash for the Ash, you cut off their Flame Burst access in most cases. They're not going to be able to follow up in a lot of ways. I guess they could kind of Poplar, Divine Temple, set a Flame Burst in the back row, but then they're not set. So they're already losing an extra +1 body on the field through the Oak play of Reborning. But then if they're setting a Flame Burst in the back row through the Divine Temple, then they're also losing another +1 body. So they're going to be -2 bodies having to try to Divine Temple set up a Flame Burst into the back row. It's going to be so horribly inefficient that still I'd say that this gives you a lot more counterplay with the deck. And another thing to note is that if you hard opened up Oak by itself, it of course is not combo, but everyone's playing the Millennium Engine. And with the Millennium Engine, it at least leaves up a field spell. The field spell could be sent to the graveyard with a normal summoned Oak. And also, you got to be thinking, why are people playing triple Oak? Well, not only for, I guess, maybe that reason with the Millenniums, but Zombie Vampire. If Zombie Vampire randomly mills an Oak, you get to reborn the Oak. Oak could send Oak and the Zombie Vampire, and then you could summon Ash, add Poplar, and you super pop off from there. You got the full freaking combo. So instead of banning Zombie Vampire, they reduced the consistency of Zombie Vampire, first of all, just even being summoned with the Golem being limited to 1. And also now its mill is even less consistent because you no longer have the option of Oak. So a few things just to recap. Ashing on Ash is a much better play now. Opening up Poplar alone is not going to be good. It can at least go into Fiendsmith, but you lose the real play of the deck. Zombie Vampire became less consistent, and wow, this is quite an interesting hit. Now, as I was saying earlier, with this being mostly played at 3, if you were to bump up Wedju Temple to 3, now there is a tablet card. It's trash though. Grief Tablet, you have to equip it, a monster you control, only then can you search the Wedju Temple. So you'd have to use up your normal summon or some nonsense to even use this. No way we're coping with this. This is Infernoble sauce, that's fine, great for them. But For the other non-equip Mad Lads, if we were to play 3 Wedge Temple, and let's say you open up Wedge Temple and a Droll and Lockbird, what do you do with that? Well, you're going to put the Droll in the back row plus a Senjin. Senjin's going to summon, search for a Golem. Then you're going to activate Golem into the back row, and then you don't want to summon it. Because with Droll and Golem in the back row with the Senjin on the field, you're going to send the Droll and the Golem into the back row to the grave for the Snake-Eyed Doom Dragon. And then from there, you could go into Zombie Vampire, because we know the Zombie Vampire is not going to whiff on its mill of at least having a monster to summon. So if the fallback is Zombie Vampire could then go into Moon of the Closed Heaven and go from there. But now, overall, quite interesting. It'd be nice to see if people start playing Wedge Temple at 3 to make up for this. That may be the case. And then overall, they wouldn't be losing any real consistency of popping off into this main play in a case. I could see it happening, especially maybe in Crystron. They have a lot of cards that they don't mind having in the graveyard. The Sulfaneer, Sulfador, Smiger, put it into the back row instead of having to put a hand trap into the back row. Yeah, okay, this is going to change some stuff, but is this still the best deck? Oh boy, I mean, Oak being hit is big, but they still have triple Diablo Star. You know what I think they're probably going to hopefully do? This is super cope, but it could happen. They may play Chorizo now. What the heck's a Chorizo? Well, if we bring up the Chorizo, there should be a deck list with, here we go, good, thank you. This is a regional qualifier win streak deck, and with Chorizo, what happens is if you have any way to make a Moon of the Closed Heaven, you now, or I should say any way to make the Requiem, so any Light Fiend, and then, by making a Moon, you can make a Requiem, you now can make a Banshee. So if you just took away their way to go into the Oak, you now can make a Banshee with any way of going into the Requiem through the Chorizo play, and the Banshee will then be able to search for a Poplar or search for an Ash if you have not used up your normal summon. And that may be what they're doing, and your extra deck would pretty much look something like this. In fact, this deck's already playing Millennium and the Chorizo, which I would be thinking off the top of my head that how could you even have room for that? Because you have to play Lina and Chorizo and Banshee. That's at least 3 cards in your extra deck if you're familiar with an extra deck of Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith that you now have to make room for. Okay, that is definitely something. So because of Chorizo being an option, and the deck is still full combo with Ash, and there's a lot of ways to still go into that full combo, the deck's hand trap resilience does go down, but I think Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith is still very freaking good. Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith is very similar to Memento. I think the gap gets lessened, but I want to say that Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith is still at least better than Memento in its current state. I'd say that we're still waiting for Melissa Rizel to shake things up. Now, another question as well, Decade, is Crystron going to move up here? Well, the tier list here is not just a linear power level. One deck goes down, the rest go up. As I said, Crystron becoming a good deck is going to have Fiendsmith control go down. I'm willing to say it could be crazy to think of. Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith, I think, is still the best deck, but just a lot less the best deck, because I think the power level of Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith was going to shoot to 20 plus. And if you don't believe me, we could straight up look at the World Champ qualifier. Because of Fiendsmith control being dropped due to Crystron, also Blue Eyes was able to be played more. This is essentially power level 21. As the tier list is essentially simulating the most recent top 100 decks, but also accounting for if a same player is playing the same deck, then it gives a reduced power level. If you ever see something being at 0.5, it's because they joined more than one event and did well with the same deck type. And that's what was going to happen. Now, I think Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith is probably just going to be dropping. Maybe Crystron will actually be a tier 1 deck and shared alongside Snake-Eyed Fiendsmith, where before I believed that Crystron was going to settle within tier 2. And maybe that's the case now for my prediction. But we're literally only 2 weeks away from an actual July meta shakeup. And I guess while we're here, if I pop this up, boom, this is coming out in 4 days. And no, this is not It's not going to change the meta. It's not going to change tier list. Gladiator is pretty much a meme. This Arcana trash is trash. Sorry, no one's going to be using this. But Gladiator, I do want to make a video with this at least. I'm going to have fun with that. I play test with them a bit. They're not top tier, obviously, but they're a really good, fun rogue deck. At least they have that. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, you know, still looking forward to the new ban list and I mean the new pack that's coming out for July. That should hopefully be a big one. And overall, what do you all think about this? I'd say Millennium is still here to stay. One of the great benefits of Millennium, besides applying so much pressure to the field, 7750, and push a monster on the back row, is another thing that really screws up the Fiendsmith control deck is it hard counters Wave King Caesar. So with Crystron using the Millennium cards, and they still should be using them, the Wave King Caesar cannot negate any of the Millennium cards, and the Doom Dragon then just pushes in the back row. So they get not only can't Bestial, can't Caesar. It's just not looking good unless I would say Fiendsmith control switches things up. So if we were to switch things up and look at that real quick, let's do that real quick while we're here. And we go on the TCG stats, we could see that it's being played in a Fiendsmith deck. And it's also being played in what we are calling a Primite deck. Sorry for the flashbang, I just duped the tab. Let's type in Primite. Hold up. So if you're a Fiendsmith control player, this is what your deck is going to more closely resemble, you know, in a way that they're also using Bestials. I would say more closely, maybe this would be the way. They're also using Bestials, but they're also using a lot of Kashtira. So I think that you have to pretty much look at Fiendsmith and Primite and then try to conjoin the two without the Bestials. And I'm thinking maybe that would be with playing, oh boy, Millennium and Kashtira maybe. I'm going to try that out. I'm going to take the Bestials out. I'm going to add in Millennium and add in Kashtira. And maybe that's going to be the new best way to play this, looking something like this. Wait, no, this is in the side deck. Whoops, there you go. Oh, like it has the Unicorn tag. It's got Kashtira. No, it's got in the freaking side deck where they have this unfortunately unlimited for both of them where we don't have the same case in Master Duel. Now, to avoid myself from rambling too long off of this, sorry, just in my mind, I'm just thinking Millennium, Oak, what's going on? I think this is still really good. Yeah, you know, you're just going to have one less golem on the field, but you'll have the possibly more Millennium field spells. I just want to hop on the ladder right now and test these changes where Oak ban be the net Merly equivalent. Yeah, right. So that's an exclusive Master Duel ban where Merly is not touched in the TCG or OCG. And I do think that Master Duel needs to have a much more different ban list than the physical card games because we don't have a side deck. Best of One is completely different. This is why we need to have the floodgates, if not banned. There are already, most of them, the best ones are across the board limited to one. We can't just side in Harpy Feather Duster and Lightning Storm. Golem died due to Snake Eyes sins. Exodia is going to sue Snake Eyes for this. Yeah, you know, it came down to two cards where it was going to be the Golem or the Zombie Vampire, and what was going to be the least collateral damage here? I guess some zombie chads out there would not want to see Zombie Vampire get hit, but then the Exodia players don't want to see their Golem get hit. It's inevitable with Yu-Gi-Oh! With the cards being so easily accessible across the board in different deck types. You're going to find your card, like, let's say Lunalight. Their card got really screwed, which was the Foolish Extra Burial. What the heck was that? Foolish Burial good. Send a spell and trap card from the decks of the grave. Lunalight needs this, and Tier Limit got it freaking limited to one. It just happens. All right, let's see. Let me close that. Yes, I was a huge fan of potential Oak ban. All right, and where's the rest of the list? So, you know, I had a fear with my ban list prediction being too short, but, you know, it was... While it wasn't exactly what I predicted, it pretty much was in line with what I predicted how big the ban list would be, where the Oak would have been my Diablo prediction, the Golem would have been the Zombie Vampire. So same energy, but of course different, you know, close to my prediction, but still so far. Maybe next time I'll predict more closely, but still same mindset of Konami. So I'm actually quite happy with my prediction being this close to what the impact's gonna actually be on the meta here. All right, you know, so should Diablo have been hit instead of the Oak? You know, while it is now better to Ash the Ash, I still very much dislike when you disrupt the actual, let's say an imperm, they then follow up with Diablo Star. They're still going to have that immense hand trap resilience, that great follow-up, that combo starter, the consistency. And I think that's a big reason why this deck is still good. And remember, it's not one Diablo Star, or I should say 3, it's 4. They have the Wanted Seeker plus 3 Diablo Star. So, all right, there you go. We're going to see the changes on the tournament, $1,000 tournament qualifier this Sunday. I'll see you there. Thank you very much. Let's go.